because all of us who are here, we are in different shapes or form affected by the Renewable Energy Directive, the Nature Restoration Law, the LULUCF regulation, the Forest Monitoring Law that is around the corner, and the EUDR that now most likely will be delayed. And as we have learned very well from all your presentations, this forest industry have been very, very good at putting in indicators that just paves the way for business as usual. For example, they have made the whole EU body focus on the age of the living biomass still standing, the teenagers in this ecosystem, the tree cover, which is something that you can replant, and then the amount, the quantity of dead wood, often killed wood. And then they are always blocking the same 3 indicators that we would like to have. We would like to have an indicator for uneven canopy layers. We would like to have an indicator for soil disturbance, carbon and water. And we would like to have an indicator on quality dead wood, often not killed. And we would like to have their age, some sort of measure on them, because those are not teenagers. Those are 400 plus. And all of you guys proved that we can do this. We can show where those forests are. We can actually map and find and prove those 3 indicators. So if the knowledge is there, if the satellites are there, if you guys are there, what could we do in order to put them in the law?
Okay, who wants to answer the question? Actually, Peter would have been good, but he's not here anymore. Augustine, maybe you? Huh?
I can say one thing, that we have these laws, they are very vague, and it's not easy to use them, but I really think that the law is as much as we make out of it. That we are here exactly for this reason, to push for ambitious implementation, to hold the governments accountable for implementing these laws, and to, basically this. So I know that we have an imperfect policy framework, but I think we can do a lot with it if we strategically think how to work on ambitious implementation. And it's true both for Renewable Energy Directive, it's true for Nature Restoration Law, it's true for all the other pieces of legislation that we have there.
Okay, thank you.
Now I would like to ask a question for Sarah to begin with. I saw that in Hungary you had an age limit beyond 100 years. How do you go beyond the age of satellite images from the 80s to determine whether the forest is older than 100 years?
So that data is from a paper by Besnard et al. So I think you can look at the paper for the exact methodology, but they combined forest inventory data and ground data with satellite images and then extrapolated using a model and other indicators. So it's a combination of information which was used in that, that map.
Okay.
But yeah, indeed. Beyond satellite images, it's difficult, but I think they did show some forest areas which are a couple of 100 years old.
Okay. I thought you made it within Global Forest Watch, that you were tracking forests further back in time than within that time window, 40 and 5 time window of the Landsat images.
Yeah, no, indeed. And we're not kind of exclusively going to use Landsat data on Global Forest Watch. So this data set from Besnard et al., we are considering implementing it in Global Forest Watch. They're working on change information, so change in forest age, which might be interesting as well. Maybe it's something you can do by combining loss and so on. So we're kind of waiting for advances to see whether that might be useful and what the user needs. And but indeed.
Thank you. I just have a very short question for you, Laszlo. You were showing now that forestry is going on actually clear cutting within the Nature 2000 areas. When I was working as an administrator at the County Administrative Board in Sweden, I was working with exactly Nature 2000, and I was always told that this is the strongest legislation we have, and it is quite strong in Sweden. but it's because of the implementation. If we now have all these future laws and legislation coming, what does this all say about the implementation and actually how EU is trying to enforce these implementations in each member state? Does it really matter if we have a lot of legislations, if they can actually not enforce the legislation in all our member countries? For me, it's like if the member states can do whatever they want with these areas, what's the point of having them?
I absolutely agree. So these are just papers. If we cannot implement or enforce it, and also I absolutely agree that in most guidelines we are using indicators which are not really touching the point. What is missing, for example, for me is silviculture. I know that a lot of examples or categories all across Europe. But the silvicultural type or method determines a lot of variables in the forest. If we are using clear cuts or just regular shelter wood, is very different if we compare to continuous cover forest management. And it seems to me that the decision makers don't want to place it into these materials or documents. How to say, the solution is just lobby work. And a critical mass. I do think that we are not loud enough, and sometimes for example, there are other examples. For example, EU biodiversity strategy is too much ambitious. It also looks like that it is also useless because it wants too much. So 10% strictly protected land in Central Europe is impossible. But at the same time, this nature restoration law is very weak and vague, and not having those indicators what you have just mentioned. So that's just a huge gap, and just this gap shows, at least for me, that we are not loud enough, we are not clear enough, we are not using the same narratives, we are not using the same wording like NGOs and scientists and decision makers as well. This whole issue is very much on the back. I can understand, of course, that war and pests and there are a lot more problems for the everyday people, and forests are like kind of heavens for them to escape. But still, it should be much more advocacy work behind.
We are still collecting ideas for how to improve the state of European forests. And here's one more suggestion. I'm referring to Jon Andersson's presentation, and he impressively showed that nature conservationists are always behind what's happening, right? Destruction of primary forests happening, and then, well, you're too late. So what about introducing or like turning around the provisioning of proof of evidence for that any impact or any forest management won't have a negative impact on the forest? Right now, so there should be something like an environmental impact assessment before any forest management action happening, yeah. So that a forest company, a forest owner, has to apply for really, and provide the evidence that there won't be any negative impact. Any comments on that?
I think that's actually the whole reason why we're doing this survey, to determine whether you have a high chance or risk of destroying an environment is because of that. If you are harvesting in an area that you know has really low natural values because they've been clear cut before in Sweden's case, it's not so necessary to do a survey. But if it is old growth or if it is old, then obviously you should do a survey before, so that you know that you're not destroying something. And when it comes to all other exploitation apart from forestry, you actually have to do this. So forestry has like this exception to this rule nowadays. But it should not.
Don't want any more exceptions.
No more exceptions. They should just follow other rules. Thank you.